A very good morning to you. What does Dintwe actually accuse Arthur Fraser of doing?
Well, good morning to you, Rebecca. This case essentially speaking to the right for civilian oversight over the intelligence services in South Africa. And essentially, the former Director General of the State Security Agency, Arthur Fraser, is accused by Dintwe of not only intimidation, but also preventing him from executing his duties as Inspector General of Intelligence. It's a case that's very reminiscent of the Inspector, or rather the Independent Police Investigative Directorate head, Robert McBride, showing his showdown with former Acting Police Commissioner Khomotso Potlane, as well as former Minister Nathi Nhleko. And essentially we'll find out today, although some may argue it's a bit of a moot point, as to whether or not the Inspector General of Intelligence has a point coming to court to fight for not only his security clearance to be reinstated, but also to ensure that he is allowed to conduct his duties as the Inspector General of Intelligence without any hindrance from anyone within the State Security Agency.
Well, also, Nickolaus, I mean, what would happen now to this case, bearing in mind that Arthur Fraser has been moved out of that position? He's now Commissioner of Correctional Services. So where does this actually leave this charge by Dintwe?
Well, Rebecca, it certainly raised many eyebrows as to why Arthur Fraser was simply shifted sideways to become DG of the Correctional Services Department and be put in charge of the country's prison when he stands accused of a raft of very, very serious allegations put before him. One of them being that he ran a parallel intelligence body called the Principal Agent Network and racked up a bill of close to, or at least over R1 billion in executing his duties, and also racked up all sorts of bills with related to the Principal Agent Network. These are allegations that are detailed in Jacques Poe, the investigative journalist's book, The President's Keepers. Those allegations still have not been tested in court. Arthur Fraser has always feigned his innocence, but by the looks of it, the Inspector General Dintwe was trying to investigate some, if not all, of these allegations, and also essentially try and ensure that there is a constitutionally mandated civilian oversight in this very critical part of our government. Intelligence services are supposed to keep the South African people, the Republic and the government safe. There's no doubt it plays a critical role in the functioning of any state around the world. But the fact of the matter is that it's operated in a very opaque manner in the past decade, certainly during the tenure of former President Jacob Zuma. So to argue that it's a moot point, seen as though Arthur Fraser is no longer in his position, is incorrect, because we are speaking to the direct right of South Africa's people to have a watchdog watching over the country's spooks, the intelligence services, who have in recent years been accused of not operating for the service and security of the state, but rather to further private interests, and also use nefarious ends to secure those private interests itself, Rebecca.
Of course, yeah, precedent setting as well, Nickolaus, because just this morning we're seeing reports of the president stamping his authority, saying that all DGs fall under him and only he has the power to suspend and discipline Directors General unless he delegated these powers to the respective ministers. So it seems something is afoot. It's an attempt to rein in and stop what, I suppose, is the question from happening.
Well, indeed, and also you need to ask yourself, if the president is stamping his authority and saying, I have the right to hire and fire, why didn't you fire or at least suspend Arthur Fraser as the Director General of the State Security and the head of the State Security Agency? We're all now dealing with we're all dealing now with various ideas being put forward and speculation, but one wonders what type of information Arthur Fraser perhaps has that prevented him from being suspended and just being shifted sideways. Was it a move politically by the President, Cyril Ramaphosa, saying this will be less of a headache if we just move this individual sideways instead of suspending him? And it does pose those questions. What does Arthur Fraser have? What powers? We know that as the head of the state security agencies, he's not only looking after to the local spy service, but also the foreign spy service, and as such has unfettered access to a lot of state power. I mean, this is a type of position that will allow the director and allow the country's spooks to be deployed to look into the private lives of politicians, of citizens, and of supposed enemies of the state. So while I understand the move by Cyril Ramaphosa to try and stamp his authority and come out and say that he has the right to hire and fire, Arthur Fraser's moving to correctional services and now an acting head at the State Security Agency certainly doesn't inspire a massive amount of confidence in my eyes that there is going to be a proper reboot of the spy service in South Africa and of the intelligence agencies that fall under the State Security Agency. If you speak to someone like the former Minister of Intelligence, Ronnie Kasrils, we spoke to him before the ANC elective conference in December, where Cyril Ramaphosa emerged victorious over Nkosazana Dlamini-Zuma. And I asked him, if you were still minister, what would you do with the State Security Agency? And his blunt answer was, switch it off, shut the place down until you've actually got a hold on what's going down there and ensuring that the right people are in the right place and not, as I mentioned before, using nefarious ends to protect corporate interests.